Hi, welcome to this episode of The Daily. My name is Brendan Malone. Well, recently my friend Sam contacted me and suggested that I should do an episode on the best movie sequels. I thought about it for a bit and then I thought, you know what? It's already been sort of done to death. A lot of people have talked about the best movie sequels, and it's generally universally agreed that the two best movie sequels ever made are Empire Strikes Back and The Godfather Part 2. Close race between the two, but probably Empire just wins that race. There are other, of course, really good films as well, like Aliens and Terminator 2 that you could point to, which are really good sequels. So I thought instead what I would do today is I would talk about what I think is the best example of a creative sequel. So a sequel that expanded a universe, expanded a franchise, and was really creative in doing that in new and interesting ways that were definitely not on the cards when the first film ended. And for me, the best example of that is the movie The Chronicles of Riddick. The Chronicles of Riddick was a sequel to the film Pitch Black, which was a low-budget indie but very well-made sci-fi thriller movie. And so what happens is a group of people crash land on this planet that every so many cycles goes into a state of perpetual darkness, and in the darkness live these predator aliens, and there's lots and lots of them, and they just hunt everything in sight. So all of a sudden it becomes this disaster escape thriller film, and it's really, really well made. Now, normally what would happen with a movie like this is when you go back and make a sequel is you simply copy the same formula. So what they do is they go back to the planet, they put a new group of people on the planet, they might have a few new little twists, but the exact same thing happens again with a different group of people. But they didn't do that in the Chronicles of Riddick. Instead, what they did with the Chronicles of Riddick was they took the main character and a couple of other sort of side characters, they took them off and they took them to another planet, and then they completely expanded the universe. They did not even use a concept that was even remote to the original one. They introduced all these cool new concepts. They even got some big name actors like Dame Judi Dench, stars in the sequel, and they created a really well crafted and very, very conceptually interesting and very well, artistically well made sequel called The Chronicles of Riddick. They even set it up perfectly for a trilogy. The end of the second movie ends on a cliffhanger moment that is ideally set up and leaves you thinking, man, what's going to happen next? But sadly, the third movie came out called Riddick. And what do? They go back to the original formula and they produce an inferior carbon copy of the first movie and completely destroyed all of the potential that was set up. And I think they completely undermined all of the good work that was done in that sequel. Now, interestingly, this is a bit of a habit with movie franchises. This happens a lot more than you realize. So, for example, even Star Wars, the much beloved first Star Wars trilogy, Return of the Jedi was the weakest movie in those three films. And one of the big reasons why it was so weak was George Lucas went back and started pulling ideas out of the first film again, A New Hope, and putting them in Jedi. Jedi's a lot better than what the Chronicles of Riddick versus Riddick was like, but still that same weakness was there. Another even more glaring example of this was the Alien franchise. So the first movie, Alien, is this unique sci-fi horror movie. The second movie, James Cameron's Aliens, expands the universe, introduces some really new creative concept, and I think is probably arguably better than the first film. And then the third movie, they go back and they basically copy the first two films and repeat a formula. Now, what was interesting about that third movie was that originally Kiwi director Vincent Ward was hired to direct and to write, or to be involved with the writing of that third film in the Alien franchise. And what he had created, I've seen documentaries where he talks about this, man, it would have been a far more interesting movie, and it would have expanded on the creativity that James Cameron had embarked upon with Aliens. So in his film, it starts with a spaceship crash landing on what looks like Middle Ages Earth, people in a monastery and living a cloistered monastic lifestyle, and the spacecraft lands, and you're thinking, man, is this, are we looking back in time, or has someone time traveled? What's going on here? And as they pull back more and more further back in the shot, you realize that in actual fact, this is a floating wooden sphere spaceship. Yes, that's right, a wooden spaceship that has been created by these people who have set it up inside to be like Earth during the Middle Ages so they can escape the world and live this cloistered monastic lifestyle. And what happens is the ship crash lands on their planet and the alien infestation unfolds from there. Now that would have been a very interesting movie to watch. But what happened was there was a dispute. Vincent Ward got kicked off the film, and David Fincher, who is still a very good director in his own right, gets brought on. They kept a couple of the basic concepts, but they completely changed the film and they repeated effectively what was in the first two movies. And I think to their detriment, because what Vincent Ward had in mind would have been far more interesting, and I think potentially would have earned that franchise far more accolades if they'd gone down that path. But no, they couldn't help themselves. So it just seems to be a bit of an issue here. That's what I think is the most creative sequel, The Chronicles of Riddick. I'd love to know what you think about this. What is your example, or what do you think is the film that in the most creative way really expanded a franchise, took it to new and exciting places that weren't on the cards in the first movie? Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow on The Daily.